unless the constitution is amended, we will not have an independent judiciary. And that goes beyond just the next elections. That is to do with the future of the country.
And the companies who come here need to be very clear about how they're going to approach the market. There are very significant human rights issues about doing business here.
It's not an investment in all costs. We want to make sure that the investment that comes into Myanmar is socially responsible.
You need to face what happened during armed conflicts and to hold accountable those who had committed serious crimes.
As an ex-political prisoner, I have also been locked in the cell for 3 years. So in this situation, I don't want back anything from them personally. I just want my country's future is good.
In 2010, Myanmar shocked the world by holding elections for a civilian government following half a century of brutal military dictatorship. The elections were widely held to be a sham, but were a momentous occasion for a country long beaten down by successive autocratic regimes. Over the past 5 years, significant progress has been made in the drive for reform. Censorship has been relaxed, foreign investment encouraged, free and fair by-elections held, and ceasefires with ethnic militia groups agreed. Thousands of political prisoners have also been released, including opposition leader and Nobel Peace Prize winner Aung San Suu Kyi. But newfound freedoms are faltering. Impunity for human rights violations continues across the country, and the government's refusal to take responsibility for ongoing abuses is a serious concern.
The most serious human rights problem in Myanmar at the moment, we need to talk about the situation in Kachin state, where the armed conflict is still going on, where the military is fighting against the ethnic armed group, and where hundreds of civilians are facing forced displacement from their villages, summary killings, torture, and other very serious human rights abuses.
There's a very lively debate in Parliament, and that institution has become a surprisingly representative institution in that there's genuine debate there. But of course there are many communities who feel that they don't have a voice, and indeed they don't have a voice here.
Beyond Yangon, the picture is very different, and the old power structures seem to be as entrenched as ever. It's the ethnic communities that are often bearing the real brunt of this, which is a real tragedy. So it's right at that grassroots level where I think the peace will be won and lost.
Foreign companies have swiftly lined up to reap the rewards of Myanmar's economic reforms. Foreign direct investment exceeded $8 billion in the 2014-15 fiscal year, according to the Myanmar Investment Commission. This is mainly focused on the energy, telecoms, and manufacturing sectors. The country now has one of the fastest growing economies in the world, and Yangon, the former capital, is experiencing a construction boom. However, the reform process is fragile, and substantial risks remain. Myanmar still ranks 177th out of 189 countries on the World Bank's Doing Business table, and 156th out of 175 on Transparency International's Corruption Perception Index.
Clearly, if we look at where resources are held, the majority of resources are still held by either ex-military or members of elites that were very powerful prior to this process was instigated. How this constitutional process or the whole reform process is taken forward and past the next elections will be absolutely critical.
We need caution, and the companies who come here need to be very clear about how they're going to approach the market. There are very significant human rights issues about doing business here.
It's not an investment in all costs. We want to make sure that the investment that comes into Myanmar is socially responsible. that it protects the environment, it protects the interests of the ethnic people.
Western companies I see are being very, very keen to demonstrate that. Unfortunately, I don't think that's necessarily true of many companies coming in from the Asian markets. They don't tend to come to our centre. They don't see the relevance because they don't have, frankly, the home country pressures, the shareholder pressures to worry about these things.
However, the introduction of international standards is far from simple. It must be done with sensitivity and care, according to the International Labour Organization.
It is really important that we recognise that Western European values cannot automatically be applied in a country which is in the early stages of massive transition. The schooling system in Myanmar has collapsed. If a kid is under the legal age to work, but is working in a garment factory now, we've got to make sure that she actually does have a life, and a mechanism can be put into place for educational continuation, for some sort of economic transfer to the family.
For much of the past 6 decades, Myanmar's 7 major ethnic groups have been engaged in armed struggle against the regime. Initially, they fought for independence. More recently, the struggle has been for a federal union. During these conflicts, the army has repeatedly been accused of gross human rights violations by the UN and international NGOs. These include murder, slavery, rape, child labour, child soldier recruitment, land grabs, and torture. Ceasefires have now been signed with all groups except the Kachin Independence Army, but abuses continue, unacknowledged and unpunished.
အဲ့တော့ကျမတို့ဒီပေါ့ကျမတို့ဒီဥပမာအနေနဲ့ပြောရမယ်ဆိုလို့ရှိရင်ကျမတို့ရခိုင်ပြည်နယ်ရဲ့ရွာတရွာမှာဖြစ်တဲ့ကိစ္စဆိုလို့ရှိရင်အဲ့မှာကျမတို့ကဒီပေါ့ဒီရွာရဲ့အုပ်ချုပ်ရေးမှူးကလှုပ်အားပေးဆိုပြီးတော့ခေါ်တဲ့အခါမှာ2ယောက်ကဒီပေါ့ငါးရှာသွားနေတဲ့အတွက်လှုပ်အားမပေးနိုင်ဘူးအဲ့မှာညနေရောက်တဲ့အခါမှာ9000ဒဏ်ငွေ9000စီပေးရမယ်ဆိုပြီးတော့အဲ့လိုမျိုးဖြစ်တဲ့အခါမှာသူတို့ကမပေးနိုင်တဲ့အတွက်နဲ့အဲ့လိုမျိုးရေးရရှိရခေါ်ပြီးတော့ရိုက်ခိုင်းတယ်အဆင့်တရားစွဲဆိုတင်ပို့မယ်လို့ကျွန်မသိရတယ်အဲ့လိုမျိုးအမောမှာတရားစွဲဆိုတင်ပို့တဲ့အခါမှာရေးရရှိရပါမလာဘူးပေါ့နော်ရေးရရှိရပါမလာဘူးအဲ့ဒါကိုသူတို့ကရေးစီကန်ထိုင်တန်ရဲ့ဥပဒေရပဲအရေးယူမယ်အဲ့လိုမျိုးပြောချင်းတည်ကျမတို့ကတရားအရက်ဖက် civilian ခုံးမှာတရားစွဲဆိုတဲ့ထဲမှာပါမလာချင်းတည်အဲ့ဒါတည်ကျမတို့ကဒီပေါ့ဒီပါမလာချင်းတည်သူတို့တရားမျှတခံရတဲ့သူတွေအတွက်တရားမျှတမှုကိုရဖို့အတွက်ခင်းနေလို့ကျမမြင်ပါတယ်
Rakhine state has been in the situation of protracted emergency over the last more than 2 years now. And our main concern in the international community was to make sure that those people who suffered as a result of the conflict, who had their livelihoods lost, their shelter is gone, who ended up being displaced, and there's more than 100,000 of them, that they have access to life-saving services.
In Rakhine State, the minority Muslim Rohingya community are strongly discriminated against by both the state and society alike. Identified as Bengali migrants by the government, they are denied citizenship and have almost no rights. Since June 2012, violent attacks by Buddhist mobs have been on the rise, including burning down towns and villages. Hundreds have been killed and 180,000 displaced. In the first 3 months of 2015, around 13,000 Rohingya fled Rakhine State by boat. Hundreds died, and many more were left stranded and starving at sea after being refused entry by Thailand, Malaysia, and Indonesia.
In Rakhine State, the Rohingya community are being segregated in a situation where this segregation is impeding for them to access to food, to, of course, education, to health, and other important elements for their livelihood.
One of the most serious crimes that continues to be inflicted on the Burmese people is illegal land grabbing by the military and well-connected businessmen. Forced evictions for the exploitation of natural resources have been on the rise over the past decade. According to anti-corruption NGO Global Witness, by 2013, approximately 5.3 million acres of land had been allocated to private investors for commercial agriculture. New land laws introduced in early 2012 were deeply flawed, legitimising confiscations and providing few protections. Meanwhile, protesters across the country are struggling to have their voices heard.
What is of concern to us that land grabbing is not an abstract issue. There's a very clear human face. The people who are losing out in this contest for land are not the ones who were well off before. They're the ones who've been poor already. There's many more people who are pushed beyond the poverty line.
The military are still using torture and forced displacement against the civilians. No one has been accountable of what happened throughout the years in the country. And history teaches that you need to face what happened during armed conflicts and to hold accountable those who had committed serious crimes, so then you can prevent these crimes from being committed in the future.
At the heart of the battle for accountability lies the Myanmar Constitution, a parody of justice that could act as a blueprint for tyranny across the world. Passed in 2008 following a rigged referendum, the Constitution grants huge powers to the military and is almost impossible to reform without their consent. It guarantees army officers a quarter of the seats in Parliament and requires agreement by more than 3/4 of MPs to amend. It prevents the establishment of an independent judiciary and gives the military a blanket amnesty for any act committed in the execution of their duties. It prevents Aung San Suu Kyi from becoming president by banning those married to foreigners or with foreign-born children. Amending the Constitution is crucial if half a century of impunity is to be overcome. So far, however, the government has shown no sign that it is willing to do so.
The reforms are very important, and not just for the elections. Unless the Constitution is amended, we will not have an independent judiciary. And that goes beyond just the next elections. That is to do with the future of the country.
What I would say about the Constitution is that unless and until it's amended, there will not be a situation here where any human rights abuses can be dealt with completely effectively. You need a strong and independent judiciary if you're going to rein in human rights abuses.
Most of the people think that Myanmar is now changing to be a democratic country, but it is not correct. In my opinion, not changed yet. All of us, we need to change our constitution because this is the foundations of our country.
In July 2014, the National League for Democracy collected approximately 5 million signatures from people seeking the repeal of the Constitution's controversial amendment clause. The NLD denies accusations it's focused too strongly on constitutional reform at the expense of human rights concerns. Aung San Suu Kyi herself has been criticised in the international media for failing to speak out on behalf of the Rohingya community. As elections approach, however, walking the line between international expectation, electoral popularity and conciliation with the military is no easy task. For Aung San Suu Kyi, comprehensive legal and democratic reform may be the most pragmatic and ultimately effective route to long-term peace and accountability.
How can you separate human rights from rule of law? And how can you separate human rights from politics? It's not that emphasis on the need to amend the Constitution or the need for rule of law is a distraction from things like human rights. I think those who do not want to amend the Constitution are trying to distract people by making them think that the human rights issue is totally divorced from the issue of constitutional amendment, which of course it is not.
The flawed constitution is a fitting symbol for the state of the rule of law in Myanmar. In the 1950s, the country had one of the strongest legal systems in Asia. But over the next 60 years, education and training were cut, lawyers were persecuted, and judges became completely subservient to the state.
တခုရှာကကျမတို့ကကြတော့ဒီတောင်သူတွေဘက်ကလိုက်ပေးတာပေါ့နော်တောင်သူတွေဘက်ကလိုက်ပေးတယ်ဆိုတော့ဥတိုက်ရှောက်မှုတွေနဲ့လိုက်ပေးတာပေါ့ခရိုနီဘက်ကသူတို့ဥတိုက်ရှောက်တဲ့အမှုသူတို့တရလိုဖြစ်တဲ့အမှုဆိုရင်တောင်သူတွေကတရားခံဖြစ်တဲ့အမှုတွေဆိုရင်ကတော့အမှုကမြင်မြန်ဆန်ဆန်နဲ့တရားရုံးကအဲ့လိုဆင်ပေးတယ်ပေါ့နော်အခုတောင်သူတွေကတရားလိုလုပ်ပြီးခရိုနီတွေကိုတရားခံလို့ဆွဲရတဲ့အမှုတွေမှာဆိုရင်အမှုကကြန့်ကြာနေတာပေါ့နော်ဆရာအဲ့လိုဖြစ်တာဟုတ်ကဲ့ကြန့်ကြာကျမဟာပေါ့ရှေ့နေလုပ်နေတာပေါ့နော်ရှေ့နေလုပ်နေကျမရဲ့ feeling ကကျမဘယ်လိုခံစားရလဲဆိုတော့ရှေ့နေတာဖြစ်နေတာဒါပေမဲ့ကျမပွဲစားတူတာတာလိုပဲခံစားရပါတယ်ဘာဖြစ်လို့လဲဆိုတော့
the show area တွေမှာတော့ကျမတို့ပြောင်းလဲမှုတွေရှိရပေါ့နော်တရားရုံးဒီပေါ့တရားရုံးတွေကရောဒီတရားရုံးမှာလုပ်တဲ့ public prosecutor တွေကရောပြောင်းလဲမှုတွေရှိရဒါပေမဲ့မြန်မာနိုင်ငံရဲ့ဒီပေါ့ as a majority သော area မှာဆိုလို့ရှိရင်ကျမတို့ကအရင်အတိုင်းလို့ပဲကျမမှတ်ချက်ပြုပြောချင်ပါတယ်။ဘာကြောင့်လဲဆိုလို့ရှိရင်ဒီပေါ့တရားသူကြီးတွေဒီပေါ့ဒီလက်ပေးလက်ယူကတော့အခုအချိန်ထိရှိနေသေးပါလို့ကျမ
Training is critical, but you also have to be smart in how to engage with the government. There is a case, for example, of a judge in Kachin state who did not accept a confession which was taken by torture by the authorities. We need to bring this judge together with some other judges and use them to improve the situation.
Blighted by poverty and with limited access to a court system riddled with corruption, the people of Myanmar have long struggled to achieve justice.
If we look at the data, how our country economy or in the past, we are the poorest of the poor, and our people lack this kind of access to court. Maybe there are many situations, for example, poverty, and other reason is like court only exist in the township level, so the village level is too far, geographically very far distant to reach there, to reach the court.
I would say that that challenge is not knowing where the help is and where they can get such help.
Without a strong, independent judiciary and a legal system that inspires trust, Myanmar's political and economic reforms are certain to falter. The country's most valuable asset, its people, will continue to be excluded from the centres of power, unable and unwilling to help drive the country forward. There is now an historic opportunity to help the whole country to its feet through responsible investment and a new era of transparency.
We do recognize that rule of law is critical because rule of law also is related to the level playing field, which means that we are in more or less a capitalist economy where competition is important, but competition should be fair.
The most important thing is, not to expect a perfect kind of environment where the people having no vested interest, but to strengthen the commitment to promote this transparency and also to promote the anti-corruption and to promote the democratization process in the country.
Transparency may be vital for Myanmar's future, but there is clearly a limit. What few are advocating at present is shining a light on past crimes. Instead, the focus is on national reconciliation, on looking forward to the future, not back to the past.
I think our people agree that national reconciliation is absolutely necessary. We are thinking of it as an agreement between different factions to pursue a certain path in the name of peace, in the name of unity, even if it means that you have to forego your pound of flesh.
When we talk about this kind of subject, we should look at our future scenario, we should only see the parts, because even that I'm as an ex-political prisoner, I have also been locked in the cell for 3 years. So in this situation, I don't want back anything from them personally. I just want my country's future is good.
It's not about retaliation to all the unfair, incidents. It's just that there should be some kind of a perfect reflection that at least identify the crime and realize it. There must be some kind of acknowledgement of what has happened.
The concern is that without accountability, crimes will be repeated in the future. But accountability can take many forms. What national reconciliation truly means, and where the line will be drawn between peace and justice, is ultimately for the Myanmar people to decide. Establishing a strong legal framework centred around a reformed constitution is one way to safeguard the future rights of all people in this humble, beleaguered nation, beyond Yangon, beyond Naypyidaw, deep into the vast ethnic hinterlands. If such reforms can be made, expectations are high for the future of the country.
The way we look at the reform process is not just the government doing a reform, but also the people and stakeholders included in this, the nation. There absolute is no going back. We are already here and we are the train has already left.
In Myanmar today, there's as many challenges than opportunities, but there's also an appetite for reform across the board. People want democracy to happen, and I think we need to give credit to all of those Myanmar people who want this to happen.
The glass half full perspective about the legal reforms is that there is now a number of emerging actors, protagonists who are advocating for the change in the area of rule of law. Though Aung San Suu Kyi had always played a very prominent role, but there's now also a cadre of officials in the government who deeply care about the rule of law issues, and that inspires confidence.
For Aung San Suu Kyi, who spent 15 years of her life under house arrest, the time for hope is over. Now is the time for action, and there is no room for complacency.
When people ask me if I hope for this or that, I always say, I don't believe in hope, I only believe in endeavour. You work to get what you want. You just don't sit and hope for it.